Hi, you guys. It's Lisa from Crafting and Cruising. Sorry I'm a couple of minutes late. Let me make sure this air in the hotel room is off. I put it on off, you guys, but I don't know if it's going to go off or not. So just bear with me. Hey, Pam, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you for being here, you guys. When you hop on, say hi. Let me pull it up here on my computer and try to share it out to my pages. Here we are. Okay. So let's see. How's everybody doing tonight? Hope you're doing well. I think Mr. Seiler just coming back in from starting some wash. Let's see. Hey, Mary Lee, how are you, sister? Let me share this to my regular personal page. Rodney, I think I've got you set up.
You got me set up?
For comments. Let's see.
Check them out. Let's see what people are saying.
I can't get it over to my personal page. Guys, thank you for being patient. Hold on, I want to show you something cool I got today. Want to see something cool?
You don't get to see the grand view out our window at the same time.
Y'all, this view is so pretty. I'm not going to turn around and show them this. Okay, Ronnie, I think you're going to have to share it maybe from your page to
From
Lisa Seiler.
From my Rodney Seiler page.
Get you hooked back up. And then, okay, you guys, so let me tell you what's happening. Today, we had the fun time with our friends Nicole and her husband from Nicole's Recycled Treasures. I'm going to put my watercolor apron on as I talk. We're still in Ohio. We came here for Kathy and Mike DiDomenico's 4th of July party, which we did last year also. And it was amazing, you guys. I don't know what they spend on fireworks, but it's a lot. And it was a great show. It was choreographed to music and everything. It was so cool. Huh?
It's about 20
Yeah,
minutes.
it's 20 minutes long. I'm going to put a link to the YouTube video that I uploaded because I went live last night. I don't know how many of you all saw that, but if you put music on FB, they don't like it very much. So I tried to do just little snippets. But I'm going to put the link to the YouTube post so you can go watch.
At least I'm not seeing the... Let's see. Go ahead.
You may have to Crafting and Cruising. Okay, so anyway, then today we met them and went to a cool antique store. What?
Who'd you meet today?
Nicole with Nicole's Recycled Treasure. I already said that. And her hubby. And then we went to lunch at a real nice place. And then we went to Kathy D's favorite Goodwill and found some stuff. But you guys, wait till you see what I got at the antique store. Nicole found to me and she said, Lisa, do you do anything with silver? And I said, oh, for sure. Because some of the things in there were pretty pricey. It's your typical kind of antique, people rent booth space, and some booths had 30% off, 20% off, whatever. But some of it was really overpriced. She said, well, you got to come see this deal. Y'all, I'm going to hold up and show you what I got. The grand total, I'll tell you when I'm at the end, $13, okay? I got this little butter dish cover. Rodney, I'm going to need you to take some of this out of my way, please, sir. I got a creamer and a sugar container. They're not necessarily matching. That's okay. Then I got this other creamer with a lid. You guys, this stuff can be cleaned up. It can be painted. It can be decoupaged. I'm going to do something for Christmas. Okay, wait till you see these. 1, 2, that handle. That's so pretty. Look at this. 3, I know, Mary Lee. Look at the detail. And the last one, 4. All of this was in a plastic bag for $13.
It's labeled bag of metal.
Yeah, bag of metal is what they call it. Isn't that amazing? I was so excited. I said, of course I'm going to get that. Of course. So I posted from the store where we were. There's a video on my page if you want to watch. So tonight we're going to do a Christmas in July painting of a poinsettia. Hey, Karen. And so we're going to talk a little bit about watercolor. I've talked about it when I've done watercolor before, but when I go so long in between times, I feel like there's some things I need to review. So first of all, I save all of my sketches that I do on tracing paper in case I ever want to redo them. One year when I got back from Africa and I did my Christmas card, I wanted to do some elephants that I saw at a watering hole there. So I sketched them off. I just simply put tape where I need to, fold them up, and keep them all together.
You want to show me how to share this?
This is one of an iris, or group of irises. You're going to have to copy the link and then go to Lisa Linder Sauer and do a post. Okay, so that's the irises. Then this is a big one I did of an African lady. So I had to put several pieces together. But don't ever throw them away because somebody may come up and go, oh my goodness, I love that painting. Could you do one for me? And then this is the one that I sketched that we're going to do tonight of a poinsettia, okay? So remember, I'm going live every day in July. I won't necessarily do a craft every day, but I'm going to try to do one most days. So you all hold me to it. So this was just tracing paper I've had forever. It's by Selectum. I don't even know where I got it, but you can just take pieces together and draw your sketch. To me, that is better than drawing the sketch right on the watercolor paper unless you're just really talented that way, because you can go back and work out all your problems here. Hey, Sherry Walton, my sister. Work out all your problems here on the tracing paper rather than on your watercolor paper. So the watercolor paper I'm using is not what I would normally use. Normally I have my own big sheets of, my favorite is Arches 140-pound cold press. You can get hot press. You can get 300-pound paper, which is a very heavy paper. All of the papers take things differently. The hot press has been ironed. The cold press has not, so the sizing is still in it. The 300-pound is very heavy, and so when you put paint on it, especially if it's a granulating color paint, it will really get down into the fibers and give a whole different look than the other. This is Strathmore cold press, and it is 140-pound. I don't normally work in books like this, but when I'm traveling, this makes it a lot easier. So while I was in the Dominican, I sketched the Dominican flag and the island of Hispaniola, and I was going to do this one in layers. So I was going to do the background then the flag, then the island, and then I'm gonna sketch over it the flower that's the national flower of the island. To just kind of remember my trip. And when I get through, I'll tear this out, cut off these edges right here, this edge right here, and sign it. Now, when I was in the Dominican, I took a brush, about a 2-inch wide brush. This is 1.5 inches. I filled it with water, and I went over the whole front side of this very well. You can also use a spray bottle and just spray it, or you can immerse it, as long as the whatever you're immersing it in is very, very clean. Then, hey Beverly, then after that dried, I flipped it over on the back side and did the back side. In a perfect world, if it worked, then when I paint on this, it will not curl up. The one that we're doing tonight of the poinsettia, I have not wet. So we may very well get some curl on the paper. If we do, no big deal. So what I did was I took my pattern, or as one of my grandchildren would say, pattern, and I took some black graphite transfer paper. This comes by lots of different companies. You can get it at Walmart, you can get it at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, any art supply store. You can see this piece has been used a lot. It has a shiny side, which is the side you want down flat against your paper, and then a not so shiny side. I know it looks shiny both sides, and you can tell by all the lines in this, I've used it a lot. Doesn't matter. So I took this and I positioned it where I wanted it on my paper. Now, you will notice that it's not fully centered, top, bottom, or side to side. When you're drawing your subject on your paper, you do not want everything, hey June, you don't want everything to be symmetrical, because you want the viewer's eye to move through the paper. So the painting, so you want to have either an S kind of shape, not obvious, you know what I'm saying, or a cross or cruciform shape. You want the viewer's eye to travel through the painting and not just get one place stuck. So if this was fully centered, your eye would just kind of look at the painting and see probably what was placed in the center. By putting it off center a little bit, top, bottom, left, and right, it's going to attract your eye more. So I laid this on my paper just like this. I took my graphite paper, and what I did was I held the top part down, and I laid my graphite paper under here, laid it back down, and traced over this bottom part. I did it very lightly. Remember, I've said before that if you do it too dark, your pencil lines will show. Some people like that. Some artists do that deliberately. I don't necessarily do it deliberately. Sometimes my lines show, sometimes they don't. So once I get the top or the bottom half or wherever you start, then just make sure you hold it so that your subject matter won't move. And then you can just kind of flip it over and turn this around any way you want to and kind of move it up. I'm not demonstrating very well because I'm trying to hold it up as I go. But you get the gist of it. You can also, if you want to, just lay the paper down and then figure where you want your subject matter and do it all at one time with a pencil. You can reuse each piece of graphite paper over and over. This came with, it says 1 sheet of 9 by 12, and so I cut it into smaller sizes. And I think I must have added some smaller pieces in here. So I haven't bought graphite paper in years. So this stuff will last, okay? So that's how I got my pattern on here with the graphite paper. Now remember, I told you if you don't have graphite paper, what you can do is take your pattern when you trace it on here, and then take a good pencil, turn it on the back side, and go over your outline. If you need to, you can do once you put your subject on here, you can go over it with a black magic marker or Sharpie. Then turn it over. Take your pencil and just kind of etch over your pencil lines like this. Not the whole thing, because the part that's in the center you don't want to go over. If you do that on the back and then flip this over and trace around it, you'll get the same effect. It might be lighter, and if so, when you take it off, you may have to kind of glance at your drawing and go back and fill in some spaces. But if you don't have graphite paper, that works great. Okay, so you can see a couple of my lines are a little bit darker. So what I'm going to do is just take my pencil eraser, because I don't have another eraser. Normally I would use like an art gum eraser. But I'm just going to kind of lighten. Let me tilt y'all down. I'm just going to kind of lighten, whoops, this line up, okay? Now, if it shows through there, no big deal. Now, I have my palette. I do not have my picture. Ronnie, could you bring me my computer and let me look up my photo reference? So here's my palette. This palette is very old. I haven't used it in a while. I do want to look up poinsettia. Do it open right there and do watercolor poinsettia. So you see this paint right here and this paint right here? Those were left over from a previous painting. I'm not going to get rid of them because paint is expensive. And remember I told you that I only use artist grade paints. This is Daniel Smith, and I should have a Winsor & Newton. Yeah, this is Winsor & Newton. Daniel Smith and Winsor & Newton professional grade watercolors are my favorite. You guys, you have to invest. If you're going to do it regularly, if you're not going to do it regularly, that's okay. You don't have to. But if you're going to paint regularly watercolor, then you want to invest in good paints and in good brushes. I promise you, you will not be sad you did. And the investment up front is more. You will be thrilled that you did it later. This is really not the one that I had on my phone. Actually, I can't send the one on my phone. So, what we're gonna do, hold on just a minute. Let me see if I can even find the reference. And y'all, this is what I do. I just go on and I Google search watercolor poinsettia. And then I pick out one I like. And then this one, I actually freehanded. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I will put this up on a wall, put my paper up on a wall, use a projector and project the image. That's okay. You're the artist, you're in charge. So I don't consider that cheating or anything else. You do what you need to do to get it on your paper the way you want it. Can you guys hold on 1 minute? I'm gonna try to send myself this. Are you still with me? Throw me some hearts if you're still with me so I'll know everybody's still here. Okay, I'm just going to pull one up and use it. Uh-oh, now it just shows one person. 6, okay, good. Okay, so, also you will notice here, I have a lot of watercolor brushes. Most of these brushes I've had for a long, long time. Recently, I bought a few thinner ones. I take very good care of my watercolor brushes so I can keep using them over and over. When doing watercolor, I think it's best to use the largest size brush on the subject that you're doing that you possibly can. So what we're going to do first is we're going to lay down a wash of yellow. Why yellow, you may ask? Hey, Nicole, there's my friend Nicole I went shopping with today. We're going to lay down a wash of yellow. Why? Well, poinsettias are different shades of red, and they have some yellow undertones. That's first of all. Secondly, some of this background is going to be green. What am I going to glaze over the yellow with? Different shades of blue to make different shades of green. So the first thing I'm going to do is a wash of yellow just to get the whole thing covered. And when I say a wash, you will see that I put very little New Gamboge, it's called, by Daniel Smith, on my palette. And I'm going to spray it and get it very, very watery. Now, there's 4 different ways to apply watercolor paint. Wet onto wet, that's wet paint onto wet paper. Wet onto dry, wet paint on dry paper. Dry onto wet, so that would be just the paint not watered down, but onto wet paper. Or dry onto dry, which is what you do a lot of times when you're finishing up to get your details in there. So, remember that when watercolor dries, it dries 2 shades lighter. So if you like what you see when you first put it down, you're not gonna like it when it dries, okay? So you'll see that this color right now is very rich. Since I only want a wash, and you guys, I have a beach towel I brought with me down on the floor so that when I'm squirting water everywhere, it's not gonna hurt their floor, okay? So when I'm doing a wash, you can do dry onto wet or wet onto dry. I think I'm gonna do wet onto dry first to show you that technique. And then if I don't like it, I'm gonna go back and re-wet it, okay? You're not gonna be able to see my face right now, that's okay. So I've got some water here. And what I'm gonna do is take this wet, juicy paint, okay? It's very wet. I'm gonna get my brush soaked and I'm gonna bring a streak of paint right across the top. Now remember, I did not wet the front and back first, so we may find some curls. See how dark that is? Now watch what happens. I'm gonna spray it and I'm gonna say, run baby run. And that's exactly what's gonna happen. And you can see that some areas are lighter than others, okay? I'll go back and I'll put a little bit more. Now I'm doing wet into wet. So the paper was already wet from me spraying it, and I'm doing wet into wet. Still too dark for me, so for this glaze. So I'm gonna wet it again, and I'm gonna let it run. Don't be afraid to turn your paper sideways and let it run that direction. Turn it upside down. Sometimes you need to paint upside down so you can see what you really and truly have, because we train our eye to see what our brain thinks it's supposed to see. And then if we deviate from that, we freak out and we go, oh, that's not supposed to be that color. Oh, that's not supposed to look like that. I don't like that. Well, if you turn things upside down and sideways and start painting, your brain will eventually see that there's not just one way to paint an apple, one way to paint a sky. So don't let your brain dictate to you what color something has to be. Now see how this is curling up? That's because I didn't wet it on the front, let it dry, then wet it on the back and let it dry. So it still has a lot of the sizing in it. So I'm gonna take my dryer and we're just gonna try to dry this real quick. So you can see with the natural light, thank you, Mary Lee, what the color is. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you is, you see down at the bottom where I've got all this extra, this ridge of extra, I need to wipe the baby's bottom. So I lay my paper towel and let it suck it up. Why do I do that? Because if I don't, I'm gonna get what's called a backwash or a back run. So what's gonna happen is the paint and the water is gonna run back up on this paper and it's going to leave what we call a bloom. Sometimes blooms are happy accidents that we like. And you can usually work with the bloom, even if you don't think you like it at first. You can paint over it several layers if you need to. But it's best to keep the baby's bottom white. Okay? Now, while I'm drying this, I'm just going to turn it because I'm trying to get the weight of the water to kind of flatten this out some. But you'll see some places are a little darker than others. That's good. You want variation in your colors. You want variation in your drawing. You want variation in anything you do watercolor-wise because it makes things interesting. And that's what you're thinking about is what is my viewer going to want to see? Okay? Now, if I were to put color on top of this right now with it still being damp, the colors would blend together, which would be probably okay for the poinsettia, but right now I just want you to see kind of how we do it in layers, okay? So, the way you know that the paper is dry fully is that once I take the heat off of it, I take the back of my hand and lay it against the paper. If the paper is still cool, that means it's not dry yet. See, it's curling up at the bottom. That's okay. We're going to eventually have so much paint on here, it's not going to matter. It would have been better if I had prepared better ahead of time and not had that. Now, instead of doing my background first of my leaves, I'm just going to dab a little bit of this yellow up, not all of it, because I want to mix some of it with my red for my poinsettia. Before I do that, however, I want to save some white spaces right here in the center. I've got it upside down. In the center of the flower. They're not going to be fully white. They're going to be light yellow. But I don't want that to get muddy or get dark. So I've got this stuff called Misket. I like Mascoid better. But whether I use Misket or Mascoid, I use a color so that I can see where it is. I'm going to put, way more than I meant to right there. And what this does is this is going to preserve the color of whatever I'm doing wherever I apply it. So, hey, Shelly. So right now, I'm just taking this. I had a toothpick over here. Oh, here it is. I'm going to take this. Who?
Ivana.
Hey, Ivana. And I'm going to rub it around in here just like this. And I'm going to go right down in the center of my painting. Can they see what I'm doing,
Yes,
running?
that's good.
Okay. All right.
They
So.
can see what you held up better than the painting.
Yeah. All right, I'm just putting a few little dots of this in places that I want to save this color and have it be more light. And it's going to almost look white by the time we add the other colors around it, because the other colors are going to be making this part kind of fade into the background. So I got a little bit too much. You don't, if you can put it back in your container, do. Whether it's Mascoid or Frisket, always store it upside down. That will keep it from getting all gunky, okay? Now, don't ever let a painting with Mascoid, sit in the sun or be exposed to direct sunlight. It will burn, basically, or bake into your paper, okay? You can use Mascoid and Frisket in layers. So let's say that when I get ready, well, and I'll just show you, when I get ready to do some of the red, I may want to save a little thin edge around some of these areas of just this light color. But I want these colors to be darker. So the way I do that is I Mascoid around it. And then
turn your camera down just a little because
Okay.
you're only getting from you're hitting your chin anyway.
Okay.
Oops, that may be too much.
I think that's good. Once my painting is done, then I go back and remove all the Mascoid, okay? So we're going to use different shades of red, different colors of red, because poinsettias are not all one color. This is Daniel Smith Quinacridone Rose. So I'm going to take a little bit of this and put it just over here on one of the sides. Remember, it's a whole lot easier to put more out than it is to take some up. So I just put a little bit at a time. This is Winsor & Newton Cadmium Red. This has a lot more yellow in it. The first one was deeper red and had a lot of blue in it. So I'm just putting little amounts. And then I'm going to use this is Daniel Smith Alizarin Crimson, which is one of my favorites. Now, I also brought some containers that go in another palette of mine that I already have like some rose colored looking in. And normally I have pieces of Velcro on here. So I'll put one piece of Velcro on here and then the opposing piece in the palette that I use it with and stick it down on there. That way, if I'm traveling or going in the car or whatever, I don't have to worry about these spilling. These are already mixed up. I think they're about the same color, close. So we may use some of this. Okay, so let's spray our colors just a little bit. You can always go back and add more water, but you can't take it out. And we're going to start with just getting the basic outline of our petals.
There's a lot of little heart emojis flying.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Okay, so this is from Plaza, which is an art place where I live. It's a 12 number round. You can see that it's long and it'll hold a lot of paint. So I'm taking some of this red and I'm going to bring it over here and mix it with some of the yellow that's here. I'm going to spray it, get a little bit wetter, maybe get a little more of this. And I'm going to touch into this alizarin crimson a little bit just to make it a little deeper, okay? We want variation, remember. So we're going to start up here with this petal, and I'm just going to start applying the watercolor right on my petal. And right now, we're not so worried about shading. We have to do that later because remember, some petals or leaves are in front of others.
Veronica Lohmeyer is watching.
Left Miller. Hey, Veronica.
L.O.U. Chase. That's Beth.
Okay, so see, I took some solid paint and added to what was already there because this is real juicy, watery paint right now. So, places where I want it darker, I'll add more paint. If I want it lighter, I can always go in with a paper towel or a Kleenex and I can dab some off. This is the beautiful thing and the reason why I use mostly transparent watercolors. When you use transparent watercolors, you can take the color back almost to the, you can remove the color almost to the white of the paper, sometimes all the way to the white of the paper. Now, down here in this center, the flower is going to be darker. If you look down in any flower down toward the center, it's going to be darker. So, I'm putting a little deeper red in here, and as you can tell, I'm just dabbing. I'm not trying to make a perfect leaf, a perfect petal. I may go back in and actually take out with my paper towel just a little bit of color. Can you see? So that it's not all so flat. Now, while I've got this open, I'm going to get one of my blues, probably French Ultramarine, that I've already got mixed up. And I'm going to take just a little bit, because what's going to happen when I put blue down here with this red? What's it going to make? This is your basic color class. It's going to make purple, okay? And because this is down deeper, we need it to be darker. I don't necessarily want it to look purple. I may want it to look still red, but I've got to get some depth in there. So I just put a little bit of French Ultra, dropped it down in there. Now watch how I'm gonna turn this. I got some paint right there. That's no big deal at all. So I'm letting the paint, can you see the paint running down? Now, it's gonna stop right here, and do you know why? Why do you think the paint would stop right there? Unless I went back and added water. Can anybody guess?
I can.
Is anybody guessing yet?
Nope. But I'm behind. It takes a while for me to get to me. They'd be on yours before mine.
The reason is because I dried most of that off.
When you blotted it?
When I blotted it. So the color is only gonna go
Karen got it.
where it's wet. Good job, Karen. Where it's wet, okay? Okay, so now, see this line right here, huh?
Tessie got it.
Tessie, good job, Tessie. I don't like that stark line right there because in a petal, I'm not gonna necessarily see that stark line. Y'all have to turn it toward me every now and then just so I can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to do it upside down so y'all can see better, but sometimes I have to just turn it towards me. Now, watch what happens if I take a little bit of this New Gamboge and drop it in there. I need some more New Gamboge out. Hold on. Let me get some more paint. Wet it just a little bit. Now watch what happens. See how vibrant that became?
Someone earlier was commenting that they had tried this and were having difficulty, and I told them to message you for some help.
Yeah, I'll be happy to help anybody. Okay, let's turn it around. Okay, so we've got one done. We've got one petal done. This over here is actually going to be green because it's going to be like a leaf. So let's go on to this next petal. Now, this petal, this part of this petal is underneath the edge of this top petal. So the way I make that look like it's going underneath is that this edge along here in this area is going to have to be darker than what this is. Let me demonstrate. Now, it's going to run into it a little bit because this other part is still wet. It's okay. It's just going to make them blend together instead of looking like they're cut out and pasted on. See how I'm kind of deliberately leaving a little bit of a line? Remember I told you that we wanted some whites and some lights? So we can do that by either using the Maskoid or we can just do it by controlling our brush. Okay? So this is pretty dark. So what I'm going to do is rinse my brush off and come in here and just take clean water. And I'm going to go all the way around this petal. And then we're going to watch what the paint does. Okay? Now, can you see the paint is just flowing where it wants to flow? I'm not doing a lot of controlling. I sort of set the stage for where it was going to go, and now I'm just letting it go where it wants to. Now, I'm using warm and cool reds. One of the reasons you do that, again, is for interest, but also it helps to make neutrality. And all paintings need neutrality, again, because the viewer's eye will stay more involved if there's some neutral spots. Neutral meaning a red, a yellow, and a green that are mixed. Now, see, this flower is still not under here well, okay? So I'm going to take my blue, and I'm going to drop it in right here. And I don't want it to go too far down that petal like it's trying to. So I'm going to take some clean water and wipe it back. I'm going to add some more of the deep red. And if I needed to, I could make almost a black to deepen it up. Does anybody on here remember when I was teaching before how we make black in watercolor?
Shelly says she's gonna have to get off because it's getting stormy at her place.
Okay, Shelly, take care, sister. In watercolor, if you use black from a tube, which they do make it, it looks like whatever you made is cut out and pasted on. Same thing if you use stark white. So the way that we make black, does anybody remember the formula? Let me turn this around and look at it a little bit. Anybody remember the formula I told you for black? Y'all should remember if you were on the live when I did it. I know some of y'all were on there. Look, I'm just letting it go. Just letting it run. I'm not panicking going, oh my gosh, this is so much lighter. Okay.
It's got 4 initials.
Yep. There's 4 initials to how to make black.
Mary Lee heard you, but she forgot. But she'll remember it this time.
You'll remember it, Mary Lee.
She probably doesn't use that kind of language.
Probably not. Okay, before I tell you, this leaf, I can decide, this petal, I can decide I want it under here by darkening this, or I can decide that this petal is actually overlapping this one a little bit. So to accomplish that, this part right here would need to be lighter to make it look like it's on top. So I'm going to kind of mix my colors with a little bit more of the yellow. And I'm going to come right up here. Now this is still pretty wet, the leaf, the petal above it. So it's probably going to bleed a little bit.
Tessie says, was it blue and purple?
No. I gave you some initials of the 2 colors.
And it's a
And
fancy name for the color.
I said that my teacher would always, when a new student came in the class, and she would be talking about black, how to make black, she would say, Lisa, would you please share how we make black? And it embarrassed me to death. There's 2 colors. I see how I made that one so much lighter. So now that gives the appearance that that petal is on top of the one above it. Because now this is darker right along this edge. So that pushed that petal down under it. Now this petal right here, all of this is underneath this petal and this petal. So around here, here, and here, it's going to have to be deeper, and then it can get lighter out here. Let me tilt this back up so those colors, see how they're running right there? Right here?
I know the initials, Lisa, but I don't know the names.
Well, are you chomping at the bit to tell them?
No, I just thought I'd see nobody's commented since Tessie commented.
The initials are, hold on, FU and BS. Yes, that's what I said. So now I'm going to do the light part first.
And they don't stand for what you think.
Oh, I love that part, y'all. French Ultramarine Blue is the FU. And BS is Burnt Sienna, which is kind of a brown.
So Tessie had one of them, right? She said blue.
So if you mix French Ultra and Burnt Sienna.
Hey, Jody Bloodgood.
Hey, Jody, you will get a real dark, almost black. And it looks so much more natural than using a tube black. Yes, you can use a tube black if you must. But watercolor purists would never use a tube black. They would never use white. And they would never use a tube green. With all of the different colors of blue and yellow there are, if you look in nature, nothing that you see in nature looks like greens that you buy in a tube. Not even acrylic greens. And sometime I'm going to challenge you to really spend some time looking at greens outside. Y'all, they are as diverse as there are people in the world. You can look at a mountain and probably see hundreds of different shades of green. Thanks to the master artist himself who created it all to begin with. So, the way we make greens is we use a blue and a yellow. And the sky is the absolute limit. Because if you put more blue in it, you're going to have a deeper color. If you put more yellow in it, you're going to have a lighter color. And you can absolutely control the hue and the shade of whatever it is you're painting. It's amazing. You cannot do a lot of things with acrylic that you can do with watercolor. I love acrylics. I do a lot with acrylics. But I'm telling you, you can't get with acrylics what you can get with watercolor. Now, do you see the variation? Now, I think this leaf right here ended up a little bit too light. So we're going to go back and we're going to add some to that. Because it looks like a dead leaf. And we don't want that. But we did want it lighter because it was on top. So you see how I left a little highlight there and a little highlight here? That's what makes watercolor interesting, is not having everything so flat. I'm going to turn it upside down again and watch these colors run back. Now, if when I get through with this, I decide, that's not red enough for a poinsettia. I want it more red. Then I can take one of my reds, or two of my reds, or three if I want to, and glaze over each one of them so that they look darker, or look more red. Okay, so this leaf right here is covering up part of this leaf, which means this leaf right here is underneath. So it's going to need to be darker right along that edge. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mix up some French Ultra. I think I am. And Ronnie, why don't you come over here and look in my colors right there and see if you see a burnt sienna. I want to show them, instead of using so much purple, how we can make this black color.
Burnt sienna's brown.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a reddish brown. Okay. See, we still have variation, even though we know it's a poinsettia. So this petal right here can just pretty much be uniform, except up here toward the middle. Now, if I feel like that this is too dark down here, watch. I just wiped my brush off. Normally I keep a little sponge on my palette to wipe it off on, and I hadn't been doing that. I've been doing it on paper towels. I can take this right now, and it's kind of semi-dry, and I can wipe some of this away. This will still begin to run down into it, but I can stop that at any point by turning my paper or by blotting more out. Did you find anything like a burnt sienna?
Not yet.
I may just not have any. I don't think I have any, y'all. I was going to show you how to do that, but I don't think I have any burnt sienna. So we'll just keep going with the the blue. Okay, so I need this to be darker right here because it's going under that leaf above it, or that petal. I keep saying leaf. It keeps going, it's going under that. So I've got to make sure that this part right here is darker. Now, if you are doing things like this and you don't want any of the colors to run together, then the way you take care of that is you just go, you work on one petal, and then you can go over here and work on one, and then you could go up here and work on a leaf, and then you could come back.
Can you dry them?
You can dry them if you want to take the time to do that, absolutely. Okay, so this is going to be a leaf down here. So let's work on this one now. I'm going to get some of the more orange red. And this one's kind of free by itself. It's not really under or over anything because we've got background showing through it. So we're just going to take a little bit of two different reds and maybe just a dot of yellow. I don't want much. I probably have already put too much. Now actually this one right here is going under this petal. So I'm going to have to darken it right there. But what I can also do then is make that one that's on top of it lighter instead of deepening this with blue, with the purple.
Dolly Albright says, "You're amazing, Lisa."
Oh, thank you.
And I said, "Hello, Dolly."
Well, hello, Dolly.
Probably not very original.
Probably not. Okay, let's get a little more down in here. And I think I'm going to show you again how I just take my paper towel. I'm just going to blot a little bit.
I like how there's 2 or 3 ways to do most anything you want to do.
That's right. And I don't like all that yellow right there, y'all, so I'm going to wipe some of this yellow off, wipe my brush off, and I'm going to put some more of this other, these other reds down in here. So let's make that one a little bit deeper right in here. And then this one on top of it, we will make lighter. Okay, so I'm going to tilt it a little bit. Now wait till we get to the leaves. That's where a lot of the fun comes in, because we spray them and we blot them. And I love doing texture on leaves. And I don't have a dry cleaner bag with me. If I did, I would show y'all, because we talked about this before too, about how to do texture on leaves. You could put a little bit of salt, sprinkle some salt in your leaves. Some people say that over the time it can really mess up your painting if you put the salt. I've never had a problem with any painting I've done with salt, but maybe it just hadn't been enough years. I don't know. Felt like I still needed to put a little purple in there.
I forgot how to spell poinsettia.
It's poinsettia. Okay, let me look at it. Okay, we're getting there. Now, I want this petal right here to be on top of this one. So I'm going to make it, notice I didn't go back in my paint. I am now, because that was too much purple. I'm going to make this part on top of this leaf lighter. And you see how I've been using the same brush. See how much I got a point out of that? Some people use the smallest brush they can find, which is okay if you want to put yourself through that. It's just going to take you a lot longer to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Okay, so see how I'm bringing this around here. I'm getting very close, but it's lighter. So now we know that this petal is overlapping that petal. Does anybody, can y'all see that? Does that make sense? I know sometimes when you're not used to doing it, it probably seems a little foreign, but I'm trying to demonstrate it so that y'all can see. Oh, yeah, now I get. It's kind of a form of shading. Can anybody tell that this petal is overlapping this one a little bit, that this one is behind this one? I'd be interested in knowing if that's...
Yeah, it shows up, but I think in the final picture it will be more because you'll go back in and touch up all the different leaves in it.
Right.
When you blend it all together, it looks a little choppy.
I know you can see it, but when I'm wanting to know if it's really making sense to them. That's because I know sometimes, you know, when you're used to doing something like this, it may seem like it makes a lot more sense to me than it does to you. And
Linda,
I want to make sure that everybody understands. Linda who?
Well, it used to be Linda.
Linda
Gore.
Williams?
It used to be Linda Gore.
Oh, Linda Gore.
Auntie Linda. Name.
Gotcha. Hi, Linda.
Jump to Joyful is watching.
Hey.
Bears Halverson is watching.
Sharon Halverson, my sister. How are you? Okay, I added a little more color there, but you see it's still lighter right on the edge and the other one's darker.
Donna says she can see it.
Good. Yay. Okay, so this petal right here is going to be tricky. This part goes over this part, so it's got to be even lighter, or I can deepen this part to push it back under this leaf. Then we come around here. This part has got to be darker all the way around here because it's under this petal. Okay, let's try something different. Let's put some water on here first. And you notice it's not fully clean water. It's got color in it. That's okay. I'm just putting water. Then we're going to drop the color in and see what happens. Y'all, I'm sorry the light's not great. I'm sitting by a window trying to get as much natural light as I can because this room has terrible light.
I think it's going to get stormy too.
Is it? Okay, so watch. I'm just coming along the edge. Now watch. Run, baby, run. What you need? Oh, I've got 2 more cups over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get thirsty, let me know.
Okay, let's see. I've got a big blob of red right there, so let's see. Okay, now I want this to stay kind of light right here because this petal is over that one below it. But then I want these to kind of blend together because there's nothing under or over this one at this point. Can you see the color still running down? As long as it's wet, you can go back and add more color and not worry about a back run. If your paper starts to dry and gets, pretty good and dry, and then you go back and you add more color, you're going to get a back run. Like I said, sometimes that's a happy accident that just works out
When it runs over
very well for you. A back run is when something has started to dry, and then about the time it starts to get really good and dry, you add more wet paint to it, and it runs back up into this. If I were to put, for example, if I were to put more paint right here, more wet paint, because this is still damp but not soaking wet, it would run back up in here and it would make like a bloom. It would look like it looked almost like a petal coming out. It's really cool. It can really be very advantageous. But it's not something that you necessarily plan. It just happens. Okay, so got that one.
Pam Sayer is watching. You know Pam?
Hey, Pam. All right, now let's go on to the next one. And I'm going to put this on here darker, and I want you to see how it's going to bleed into that other one. See how it's bleeding? Now, I'm going to stop that bleeding. I don't want that much. So, in order to stop it from really running, I got to turn my paper around so the paint will start running the other way. Otherwise, it's going to bleed right over into it. Okay? And notice that I'm adding on almost every petal, I'm using a cool red. That first one I put down has a blue undertone, so it's a cool red. And then I'm using a warm red. The Scarlet Lake, I think is what I'm using, is a warm red. It has more orange in it. Now look how those two blend right together. We don't want that, because that looks like all one petal, and it's not. So I can either make this one deeper along the edge, or this one lighter. So my brush is kind of what we call thirsty. It's not real wet. It's not totally dry. So I'm going to take some of that off, blend it in. I don't want it to be such a sharp, solid line, because that doesn't look good. But now you can see that this petal overlaps that one. And I could make it even more dramatic by adding a little more of the blue right along this edge.
I think that's something kind of unique to watercolor, that you can either put paint on or take paint away with your brush, whereas with acrylics, I don't know that difference.
Exactly.
You might just scoop some off with your brush, but you don't normally try to take
No.
color away with your brush.
Mm-mm. No, you don't. Now, I don't like the color of this very much, so I'm gonna kind of add a little more paint and then just kind of let it do its thing and see what happens. Let's just watch it for a minute. Tilting it down. Remember, the paint's only gonna go where it's wet. So I'll have to worry about it bleeding out over here. However, when you're doing your background, you want your background to blend with your painting. In other words, you want them to kind of meld together. What goes up must come down. So, if you use a red in the middle here or at the top here, then there needs to be red down here. If you use the blue somewhere down here, there needs to be blue up here, okay? There needs to be some consistency with interest. So, you don't want to have a totally different background where everything is all bright or everything is all dull. Again, you want neutrality, you want some differences, but you want it to blend together. So when we get ready to put the green in here, we're going to use the same New Gamboge yellow, but we're going to mix it with some different blues so that we will get different color, different shades of green. Now this one is still too close together, okay? I don't like that. So I'm going to have to add the blue. I really, really wish I had brought my burnt sienna, because this is too purple for me for a poinsettia, but we'll just have to make it work. So does anybody have any questions?
Sharon says it's so pretty.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, now this little leaf right over here, believe it or not, that is not a leaf, a petal. Why do I keep saying leaf? So now that this is kind of dry, I'm going to come over here and paint this one in. And it's kind of hiding between two. So it's going to be darker than the ones around it.
So is it on top?
Huh?
Is it on top or on bottom?
Both of the sides of it go underneath the ones next to it.
It's kind of peeking through between.
So we just got to kind of make it be enough darker that people know that one's kind of hidden back there. And I'm gonna tilt it and turn it a little bit. I'm running out of daylight, you guys. Okay, so we have 2 more to do before we do our background. All right, this time let's go in and add water like we did before. This time it has a purple cast to it. It's not totally clean. Some people would go back and get clean water. You know, I mean, the water is so light, and remember I said everything dries 2 shades lighter, so, you know, so what that it's got paint from my painting, so it's not like it's all that, gonna be all that different as far as the shade is concerned. Okay, so see how it's running? Run, baby, run. I'm trying to follow the shape of what I drew, but I'm trying to let the paint do its thing. And maybe I won't spill it all over the floor. It's about to fall off my lap. Okay. See how it's running? This one has too much yellow, so we're gonna have to glaze over it. Leaving a little bit of a white outline to kind of separate it a little bit, but I don't want them totally outlined in white because then it looks like it's not part of this flower. Okay. Let's put just a hint of watered down yellow in there somewhere. You know, there's so many fun tricks you can do with watercolor. If you need, like for example, this is totally, like we're not even talking snow yet, but if you, now see right here, let me interrupt that thought to give you this thought. Now I'm using wet onto dry. So I'm gonna have to really define this petal in a minute. I'm gonna start out doing it by leaving a little outline there to remind me. But all of this down here is gonna have to be a lot darker because it's coming down toward the middle of the petal. Now, what was I starting to say? Totally forgot.
Snow.
Oh yeah, if you wanted to do snowflakes on a background, well, nobody's gonna sit there and paint all those snowflakes. Now, you know, in acrylic, we can do little crisscrosses to make snowflakes. But in watercolor, what you can do is thin out your paint, run a toothbrush through your thinned out white paint. This is the time where you can use white. Run your toothbrush through there, then take your finger, hold your toothbrush upside down, take your finger like this and run across the bristles like this. And you will get little white flecks like snowflakes. So cool and so pretty.
Similar to how you make stars, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna let that run. Now, poinsettias have veins in them. And normally the veins are lighter. Because I used transparent watercolors in this painting, just like I did right there, I can go back and I can lift veins out if I want the veins in there. So, because we're running out of light, I don't want to do too much more on the actual poinsettia itself because I want to get to the leaves to show you what we're going to do with the leaves. But I probably off camera will go back and pull some veins out of here. Again, it'll give it more dimension, it'll give it more interest, it'll make it more realistic looking. Some people do not like photorealism in watercolor, and some people love it. I have a hard time getting away from photorealism when I'm painting watercolor. I'm trying to be more loose, but it's really hard for me. because my brain still wants to paint what it sees or what it knows is there, rather than being loose and just giving the impression of. Now we have another little area right down in here, and then we've got the center, remember where we put the mascoid? We've got the center, and it's supposed to be a little bit on the yellow-green side. So, since we're going to be mixing yellow-green anyway for our leaves, we can mix some up. See how I'm tilting it and letting that paint run down there? Now our leaves are mostly going to be wet into wet because I don't want them to look exactly like leaves. Again, this is more impressionistic, okay? So let me wipe off a little bit of this red right now. I'm not going to wipe it all off because remember, what goes up has to come down. So we need a little bit of this red to be mixed in with our leaves. But some of these places right here, I've just got too much color. And I need to be able to mix some more. So I'm going to wipe this off.
When you start your leaves, are you going to have all your other part of your flowers dry or wet?
It doesn't matter because, again, some of the green should be going into some of the petals. All right, so we've got this yellow. I have got this blue right here is Winsor Blue green shade. There's also a Winsor Blue red shade. This one may be dried up. This may be one of those I've had for 10 years and it's dried up. So, yes, it is.
You need some water on it?
So, no. I have this blue right here that's already mixed up. That's more of a kind of a turquoise. Have a little bit of that. That's probably the one called Cerulean. And then I have, I think that's the same one. Let me find the cobalt blue right here. Okay. So now what we're going to do, since we got to get our little center in, I'm going to take some of my yellow right here. Y'all see that? And I'm wetting it. I'm going to rinse my brush and take just a little bit of this cobalt blue, I think. No, maybe this turquoise.
So you've done this whole thing so far with the same brush?
Same brush. Have not changed brushes. Now that's a little bit too greeny for me. I mean, too like, well, it's getting better. Add more New Gamboge, but I don't want it to look like mint green, okay? So I'm gonna put this down in here. And when we take the mascoid off, y'all will be able to see where the yellow under it that we saved with the frisket or the mascoid leaves little dots, okay? Now, if that's too dark, go back and add a little New Gamboge, okay? All right, so here's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna take a bigger brush. I'm gonna take this brush right here, this Big Mama. This is a Da Vinci 26, okay? I'm going to maybe get some clean water over here. And I'm going to take some New Gamboge and thin it down some with my spray ball, okay? We're given the appearance of leaves. We're not trying to make realistic leaves. All right, I already got some red right here, so look what I'm doing. I'm taking this big brush, and I'm just putting water on here, however, okay? I'm not trying to make a pattern. All right, I'm gonna take some of this New Gamboge. I'm gonna drop it in there. Take some of this blue, the cobalt blue. Drop it in there. Get some of this little turquoise bluish. Oh, that's too, I don't like that. That's not realistic for a poinsettia. Take some more New Gamboge. Run, baby, run. Take some of this darker blue right here. Probably needs a little bit of water added to it. Paper. Wipe the baby's bottom, remember, so we won't get the back runs. Now I took a lot of that color out, so let's put some back in. And again, it's impressionistic, remember? We're not trying to be realistic. And I'm just letting the colors do what they want to do. Let's see if I can hold it like this so y'all can see better. Some more New Gamboge.
Vicki Sanders Culbertson is watching.
Hello, Vicki.
It says Donald Cates is watching. He's one of my schoolmates.
Weren't you just talking about him earlier?
I was earlier today.
All right, now look, I'm going to take this and I'm going to pat it some. Why? Because I don't want that hard edge right there. Giving the impression of, okay? So now we've got some green here. I need to get a lot more of the New Gamboge. And I want to show y'all something. Today I didn't realize I had my New Gamboge and some of my professional watercolors with me. So Roddy and I went to Michael's. And at my Michael's, they have Winsor & Newton watercolor. They did not here. So I had to get these these are Academy watercolors, and they're called Cotman. Cotman watercolors are student grade. Yes, you can use them, especially if you're not going to be doing a lot of watercolor, but you're not going to like the effects as well as you would if you use regular grade watercolor. Professional grade watercolor. So here we go. I've kind of got an outline drawn of a leaf up in here. I want this up in here to be part of that. This hole I've got up in here. So I'm just putting some, see, I've got some green on here. So let's take the New Gamboge, drop it in, literally dropping it in. Hello, Jill. Okay. Rinse my brush. I'm going to get some of this blue right here, thin it down a little bit, come over here. I want this up in here to be darker. Okay, now I'm going to put just water on my brush and I'm daubing it on. Now watch what happens. Wipe the baby's bottom down here. Tilt it. Wipe the baby's bottom again. Now tilt it back this way. Tilt it this way. See what's happening? Variation. And I can hear my art teacher right now in my head. Variation. See how we're getting all different kinds of greens by just using 2 or 3 colors? You can use tube greens, but they look artificial. They don't look real. Now, I don't want a hard line right there. So I'm going to tilt it. Kind of dry it right here a little bit with a paper towel just to not have a definite leaf. Some places you can go back and make darker. Because again, if you look at leaves in nature, they're not going to be all one color. They're going to have variation. Now, I could have gone in and just painted leaves in here, poinsettia leaves, but I don't want to. I'm just giving the impression of. Okay, that got a little muddy right there, so let's add some more yellow. Let that run. Maybe a little more dark blue right here. See how they're just all mingle, 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 mingle. They're loving each other. This is kind of a weird edge, so we just add some water to it to kind of make it not so defined. And this over here is kind of defined, so thought I had taken care of that a while ago, but apparently not. See what we're doing? Just giving impressions.
Vicky Culbertson says, hi, Lisa, that's beautiful.
Thank you, Vicky. Okay, now let's come over here to another part. This up here. I've already kind of got this marked off for some paint. And sometimes it's good once you think you're through with the painting. See how I drug some of that red out in there? That's good. That's good stuff. Sometimes when you think you're through with the painting, it's best to just walk away. Get away from it, go do something different, watch a television show, do something, take a bath, and then come back, stand back. Don't have it right up by you. Stand back away from it and walk away and look at it from a different perspective. Sometimes we are so up in our paintings that we can't see the forest for the trees. And we'll stand back and we'll go, oh my goodness, I love what happened there. I had no idea that happened.
Evalny says, this is beautiful. You have a true gift.
Thank you, Evalny. You're so sweet. Sometimes you'll look back and you'll go, ugh, I need to do something to that. I need to brighten that up. Or that's just a little too muddy for me. And so you may want to go back and add some to it. You will know when you're done. If you need to get another opinion, get another opinion. But usually, I just let the painting speak to me. I just will, I'll look at it and I'll go, I don't know. Are you done? And then, when I step back and look at it, I may say, I think I am, but let me walk away for a few minutes and see, and then I'll come back and reevaluate. And when you come back, you'll go, yep, that's it. And that's when, as my art teacher said, it's time to sign and move on to the next painting. Okay? I still don't love this down here.
Nicole says it's beautiful. She's back with us.
Thank you, Nicole. So let me add a little bit. I'm going to try to make this a little, I don't know what I'm trying to make it. Now that I told y'all that. I was trying to make it something. I didn't like how it looked. But, remember I've told y'all before about my friend Lucinda? God rest her soul. Our teacher would be going around the room and, helping people, or people would be frustrated about something, and Gail would say, you need to just leave it alone. And Lucinda would holler, don't over booger it. So it's kind of hard when you're involved in a painting to not over booger sometimes. Sometimes we just keep on and on and on and on, and then it's like, why didn't I just leave that alone to begin with?
Mary Lee wants to know what size brush you said that big one was.
This one is a 26. What in the world is that dark? I just ran it through the paint and didn't realize I did. See?
Don't overbooger it.
Well, I just did. But not to fret.
Jody Bloodgood said that what you said about walking away and coming back and looking at it, it's the same thing her professor in college told them in writing class, to
Yeah.
walk away and come back, or leave it and come back to it.
Yeah. Okay. We've got 3 different areas. Each corner of your painting, your watercolor painting, should look different. Okay? Most of my corners look the same. I don't know what this dark stuff is. I think we're going to have to remedy that by putting some yellow over here maybe and kind of let it run. You can always take your spray bottle and then just spray it.
Donna Harrison says it's just beautiful. You make it look so easy.
Thank you, Donna. You know what? It is easier than most people think, myself included, when I got started. I just thought, people were right. This is too hard. I'm not going to be able to do this. And, you know, it's like anything else. You learn to ride a bike. You don't learn to ride it all at once. You learn it a little bit at a time. You fall down a few times. You get up. You try again. And then before you know it, you're riding a bike. Same way with watercolor painting or any kind of art form at all.
You're kind of off camera.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I was. So what I'm doing now is just trying to decide how I could take care of that little blob over there. And do you see how I brought the red down in here? So now what I need to do also is get a little bit of this red and come back in here and put some, because what goes up must come down. And I really didn't have any in here. Green part. So I'm just letting that run. I'm just gonna let it do its thing and see what happens. It's kind of getting muddy right there. That's what we call a neutrality, also known as mud. Neutrality is when you have a red, a yellow, and a blue mixed. Sometimes it has more yellow, sometimes it has more red, sometimes it has more blue. Neutrality gives you more of a gray area. You have to have them in your paintings. When you look outside, the whole world's not bright. There's a lot of neutrality. So that's what you have to have in your painting too. You do want to be careful when you mix them though, because there's a difference in neutrality and mud. Now again, once this dries, I may go back and look at it and go, don't love it, and need to do something else to it. I'm going to pull out some veins. Okay, so this corner is different than this corner, but these 2 corners are still kind of the same. So let's see what we can do to remedy that without it being too in your face. I think I'm going to put just a little hint of some red, like the poinsettia in here. But I want it to fade. It's kind of like when we women are doing our makeup. If you wear makeup, you know, you don't want to come out with big circles on your cheeks where you have blush, right? You don't want it to look like some little bitty teeny tiny old lady that didn't know how to do her makeup. So you blend, blend, blend. Same way with watercolor. It's really true with any kind of paint medium. Okay, So that looks better to me. Now, I'm gonna take, after I move this off, I'm gonna take this little deal right here. Forget what it's called. You can get them lots of places. And you can tell mine's been used and well loved a lot. It's rubbery. And right in the middle where I had those dots of Frisket, I'm gonna rub.
Does the paint have to be dry first?
Yes, it should be. And see how it left those little white dots. Now see how those dots look white? They're not white. Remember, we toned all of the paper with yellow. So those dots are not white, but they look white when you put all the rest of this color around it.
And that just rubbed the mascoid off?
And that just took the mascoid right off of there. It won't do that if you bake it on by letting it get exposed to sun. I kind of did that one time with the painting that I left in my car after I came home from class, and I forgot to get my painting out of my car. And it was the summertime, and it looked like a hot mess. I finally got it off, but it did compromise the integrity of the paper, so I didn't like that. All right, I'm gonna see if I can real quickly, before it's totally dark outside. Well, maybe I do have my scrubber brush. Should have it in here. See how I have a toothbrush in here to flick on here? Here it is, right here. Now, this kind of brush right here is really, see, it's a scrubby. There's just not much to it. It's mostly used when you're trying to rub back like to the white of the paper because you don't like what you see, and maybe you didn't use a transparent watercolor, and so it's got too much color. And again, if you rub too hard, you will mess up the fibers of the paper and you won't like the result. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move these 2 cups that have dirty water in them. And don't ever leave your watercolor brushes in a container like this. It will bend and curl the edges and they'll never be the same again. And when you spend money on brushes, you want to keep them in good shape. It's okay for a few minutes to leave them down in here and rinse them off, but always clean them really, really good. There's brush cleaners you can get, and then lay them flat to dry. All right, I have one more container over here of white water, and I've got a fairly dry paper towel. So let me see if I can pull some veins out of here. Alrighty, so y'all don't need to see the water. Let me just hold this right here. All right, so I got my scrubby wet, and I'm going to just put some right down here. I'm gonna take my paper towel and I'm gonna blot it. You see that white line? Now I'm gonna go up here, blot.
So it's kind of like a magic eraser.
It is. And speaking of magic erasers, did you know that you can actually use one of the Mr. Clean magic erasers on watercolor paper? Now, you see how much that took off right there? I'll have to go back and touch that up. See, that went almost totally back to the white of the paper. Why? Because we use transparent watercolor. All right, so you see how I just made those little veins in there? Just makes it look more like a poinsettia leaf. Look how white that got. Isn't that cool? You can't do that with acrylic. Already had a little bit of a white area there, so I'll take advantage of that.
do that.
Huh?
Gives them more depth when you do
Yeah,
that.
it does. Makes it look a lot more realistic for sure. I don't know. Let me see what they call it. They call it a Fritch scrub. Fritch scrub. Y'all, it has taken so much of my red paint off. I might have to go back and touch it up.
You're getting your brush a little wet.
I'm just taking too much off. So what I'm doing, I'm gonna kind of blend that right there. I don't like that big dark spot. So I'm just kind of blending that out. Always have a napkin, paper towel, something in your hand to clean off when you need to blot.
Jody Blodgett said that is so cool. You're teaching us not to focus on realistic. I need that.
I know, I do
Nicole
too,
said,
Jody.
Should have just came to you today and had you teach me this.
No, sister.
Donna Harrison said that looks so relaxing.
It is to me.
Jill, you commented earlier about the circles on the cheeks.
Uh-huh.
Jill said my great grandma had the 2 circles of rouge.
Yeah.
Nicole's Recycled Treasure says we got some ugly storms starting to blow in here.
Are they? Are they heading my way, our way, Nicole? I mean, the sky looks cloudy, but it doesn't look terrible. Are they heading toward us? See, I don't know where we are in relation to y'all and the way the storms are moving.
That's starting to look pretty good, Lisa.
Thank you. I gotta go back and touch up some of these where this is taking the paint off.
Casey says magic eraser is truly magical in many ways. I used it to get paint marks off my car. I kind of bumped into a red pole.
Oh, you did? Kinda?
At the gas station. It looked like a murder scene. Had a little red on her car. What, maybe she nicked somebody a little bit there.
I'm so sorry. It's not funny.
Nicole said she's not sure about our proximity. It's coming right off the lake. We'll be fine.
Y'all, when we were in, I think I told y'all this story, but when we were in the Dominican Republic, we were on the 3rd floor of our building. There were several buildings. And we laid down to go to sleep one night and had barely gotten to sleep till the fire alarm went off. And it was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And then you hear this lady talking in Spanish, this is a fire alarm, evacuate the building or whatever. Well, we walked out in the hall and, people were coming out half asleep and nobody was really getting in a hurry to go anywhere. And so I'm standing up on the balcony and I'm looking down and, there's people down there kind of looking like, why are y'all looking down here? Because there was a bar down there. And so somebody said, is there really a fire? And they were going, I don't know. So I asked Rodney, I said, will you just go back in the room and call the front desk? Since nobody's panicking, I don't think there's really anything to worry about, but will you just call the front desk? So he did, and he said, we're in building 16. Is there really a fire? No. There was a restaurant that kind of was adjoined to our building, and supposedly, it was just coming from the restaurant. They were cleaning up or whatever. So, by then your adrenaline's going. It's hard to lay down and go back to sleep, and you're frustrated. So we got back in bed, and no sooner got to sleep, the same thing happened. By then you're ticked. You're like, okay, some kid is pulling the alarm. But yet you can't just sit there and not do anything because you don't ever know when it's going to be real. And so we went back out again. And, of course, it was a false alarm again. I really think a kid was going through and pulling it. But it's so frustrating when you're trying to go to sleep. Was that the night before we came home, Rodney? I think we had to get up early the next day or something. I can't remember. But
Tessie says the car incident with the red paint on it happened 6 years ago, and her husband finally fixed it for her.
Well, that was nice, Tessie. Did you tell him thank you?
That sounds like some of my fix-it jobs.
Let's don't talk about those on this live, okay?
Okay, suits me.
One more leaf. This one could probably use a little more, but then I'm gonna have to go back and touch some up because they look more like now I need to go in and deepen some of them. Is what I need to do, is put some dark around some of them so they won't look so much like just green leaves. But at least we have a little dimension here. I don't know what this dark spot is, but I need to get it off. And if I had had my BS nephew, it would have helped. Because it wouldn't be so purple. That's okay. Okay, so does anybody have any questions for me?
My phone just died.
So Rodney will be working tomorrow. And I'm hoping to get to see a watercolor friend of mine. I visited her when I was here before. And
Maybe you could interview her.
that would be awesome. Y'all, if I can, I'm going to try, if we get together with her, I'm going to try to interview her. Make sure you watch for your telegrams because she is an absolutely amazing, amazing artist. And what I want y'all to do, here you go. What I want y'all to do, if you think you like watercolor at all, is go to online, M as in Mary, A. Boysen, BOYSEN.com. Her name is Marianne Boysen. And I want you to get on there and just peruse through her website, y'all. She is incredible. And her husband was 90 some odd years old. I didn't know this from when we were here last time. He's passed away. But Marianne has done absolutely gorgeous paintings. She lives in Chagrin Falls. The first time I ever heard of Chagrin Falls was through Marianne Boysen because I was painting in Ghost Ranch, New Mexico at a watercolor workshop with her. And she told me that she lived in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. And I was so fascinated by the name of it because to me, thank you, Nicole, to me, it sounded like something out of a Hallmark movie. It really kind of is something like out of a Hallmark movie. I just love the name of it. Well, she was showing us in New Mexico some of her paintings, and she had done a lot during the winter when it was real snowy in Chagrin. And I mean, the way she had painted the mounds of snow in watercolor, I was enamored with. And so, anyway, she later wrote a watercolor workshop book and asked me to edit it for her, and I did. And she gifted me with one of her paintings for doing that. That's been well over 20 years ago when I first met her. So then fast forward to the crafting world after the panty came along. And I was watching Royal Funky Junk one day, and she said she was from Chagrin Falls. And I'm like, what? What in the world? Thank you. You too, Nicole. I think we're kindred spirits. And so I said, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. So Rodney found out that he had a job last year on the 5th of July right outside Chagrin Falls, which is how we ended up at Kathy's 4th of July party last year. She invited us to come since we were going to be in the area. Well, I had not talked to Marianne. I didn't even know if she was still in Chagrin Falls or not. And so I happened to still have her number, and I contacted her. And she said, oh, sure. She said, I'm caring for my husband who's blind. And she said, but y'all come over and we'll have tea and coffee and fruit and things like that. So we did, and mostly sat out on her back porch. But we saw some of her paintings. Y'all, she has some bird's nest paintings that you have got to look at her stuff. They look so realistic. Every little stick and twig is painted in her bird's nest with these beautiful little robin's egg blue eggs in there. I mean, they are stunning. And she's got a few things in Chagrin Falls in, you remember the name of that shop, Rodney, or that art? It's an art gallery.
No, it's a gallery right on the corner of the river.
She used to teach there. And so when we were here last time, she was showing Rodney around her studio while I was sitting outside talking to her husband. And Rodney asked her about her paintings, and she said most of them, y'all, are in a climate-controlled storage unit. They are worth thousands of dollars. But she didn't, and Ronnie said, you need somebody to like represent you and get some of those sold, because her family's probably not going to want every single one of her paintings. I couldn't believe, I was just sick. I was like, oh my goodness, no, they're not in a vault or in a storage unit. So anyway, her sketchbooks, like whenever she would travel, she taught a lot of watercolor workshops in France, and I don't know, she went to several different countries and taught workshops. And so she kept a little, that's okay, Cap. She kept a little portable palette with her of watercolors with like 2 or 3 brushes that she could put in her backpack or her overhead bag. And she would sit in airports and she would sketch people. She'd see somebody sitting over there reading a book, and she would sit there and sketch. And then she would get out her little bottle of water and her watercolors, and she would paint just enough to remember when she got back if she wanted to paint a whole painting of that particular thing. And then she made notes out by the side of where she was and, you know, what the situation was. Unbelievable. She had, how many do you think, Ronnie, she had?
I don't know. She just had a
sketchbooks,
had
tons of them. That
bookcase full of
honestly will be, in my opinion, will be worth a lot. Already are. But one day when she's gone, they're really going to be worth a lot. And so Ronnie got to see some of those too. And she has, during, you know, the pandemic, when she was taking care of her husband and stuff, she quit painting and teaching so much. And, hey, Brenda. And she started crafting and had made, what did she make? Birdhouses?
Well, she does several things, but the thing she's working on were like flowers made from orange peels was one of the things.
Oh,
she's doing
yeah.
at the time.
Flowers made from orange peel. Yeah, she's, okay, so I'm going to tell you one more time. M.A. Boyson, B as in boy, O-Y, S as in Sam, E-N.com. Go on there and don't waste, don't not spend time on there. You will be so impressed. So if you live anywhere near Chagrin Falls, you need to try to see some of her artwork. So I'm hoping, she wasn't available today, but she said she'd be available the rest of the time. So Ronnie and I have decided after he gets through with his job here, we're going to stay tomorrow night before we start either heading to another job or heading back. And so I'm hoping we can get together with her tomorrow, and I would love to interview her like I interviewed my art teacher from Nashville. And so if I do that, I'll ask her permission, see if we can come live. If not, maybe we can, you know, record it and show you guys. But anyway, watercolor is a beautiful medium. It's fun. It is relaxing to me. Some people may not think so, but I do. So here's our little Christmas poinsettia. I'm going to go back and deepen up around some of the veins. I'll probably look at it tomorrow and say, while Rodney's at work, is there anything else I want to do to this? And if not, then I will sign and move on. And that will be our project for today. Y'all, I got a
question for you. How many brushes did you use?
2. Well, if you
3
include
the scrubby.
If you include the scrubby, yes, 3.
Okay. How many paints did you use?
I used an orange red and a blue red, and I used 1 yellow, New Gamboge, I used Scarlet Lake Red. I used Alizarin Crimson Red. I used French Ultramarine Blue. And I used Cobalt Blue. I accidentally used that turquoise, which I quickly said, mm-mm. But you can do entire beautiful paintings with one yellow, one red, and one blue. At the most, one yellow, 2 reds, and 2 blues max. If that's all you can do or all you have, you can make gorgeous paintings. Because y'all think about it. To make purple, you use red and blue, okay? So, if you use Alizarin Crimson and French Ultramarine, you're going to get a deep purple. If you use more Alizarin Crimson than you do French Ultra, you're going to get a more red purple. But if you use more French Ultra than you do Alizarin, you're going to get a deeper blue purple. Then you can take Alizarin Crimson and you can mix it with Cobalt Blue. And you'll get a whole different thing. So what our teacher made us do, and just like a kid learning to play the piano who whines when they have to do, scales and things like that. I know I'm a pianist. I had to do all that too. She had us get pieces of paper, kind of like this, and we made a color chart of greens and purples and neutralities. And down one side, we would put like all of the blues, French Ultra, Cobalt, Cerulean Blue, Manganese Blue Hue, and then across the top, we would put the reds. And then we would take on our palette and we would mix the two, like in not mix with water at all, just mix them totally and show the dark. Then we would add a little water and put in the next square, a little water in the next square, a little more water in the next square, a little more in the next square. And so we did all that with French Ultra and Alizarin Crimson. Then we would do French Ultra and Scarlet Lake, and we'd do the same thing, full amount here, and then add just a little bit of water. So you grid it off in squares like this. And then you add just a little bit more water every time. And you do that with all of your blues and reds, okay, together, if you're making a purple chart. Then, when you go to do a painting of an iris, and you want an iris that's going to be more of a blue-purple, then you get out your purple color chart, and you see, oh, I mixed Alizarin Crimson with Cobalt Blue, and it was like the 4th or 5th dilution down. So that's how I'm going to get that color. Instead of having to go to your colors and mix them all on your palette and then go, nah, that one's too red, or no, that one's too blue, I don't like that. You go to your color chart. So even though it's a pain to take time, if you're just sitting down, if you're going to do watercolor and you're just sitting down watching TV or whatever some night, just sit there and grid off. Get you a thing like this. You can get them at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Amazon, and just grid them off into maybe like 1 inch, 1.5 inch squares. And then, if you need me to send you the color or tell you what the colors are, I can. You can find charts online, but when you look at those, you're not necessarily seeing the true color. And so if you do that, make a green chart, make a purple chart, and make a neutrality. And remember, the neutrality is 1 blue, 1 red, 1 yellow. The sky is the limit. You can get a cool gray, you can get a warm gray, you can get a blue gray, you can get a red gray, you can get a light gray, you can get a dark gray. But mixed in your painting needs to be neutrality. So if you look back on what we did tonight, we have neutrality right here. It's got color in it, but it's neutrality. We have neutrality right here. It's a green, but it's got a lot of neutrality mixed in with it. We don't have as much neutrality in here, but we've got some, especially where the veins came out. But see, this is the best example of neutrality up here. We have green, we have some purples and some reds, but we have neutrality here. We have neutrality a little bit right there. And we've got neutrality up here.
Kat's on said sorry she was so late.
It's okay. So, guys.
It's gorgeous. Tessie says love it. Can't send any more hearts because I've put on notice that I've sent too many. Could be spam.
So, y'all, as always, I'm super grateful for you. Thank you for your support. I'm going to work hard this month to be live every day and really try to get the page going. If you have not subscribed to Telegram, please do that, y'all. I read somewhere yesterday, one of the crafters that has a lot of followers said, y'all, I checked with some of my followers who were not, they told me they weren't getting notifications, and they went in and looked, and FB had just turned their notifications off for them. They didn't ask them to, they just did it. So it's good to make sure that on my page that you have the notifications turned on, and you can choose whether you want all notifications, default, highlights, or whatever. But the Telegram link that's pinned at the top of the page is the very best way, because I can send a Telegram going live in 10 minutes, doing a watercolor tonight, bam, send it. It goes to everybody on Telegram, and it's so much easier for me. So anyway, I love you guys. I hope you have a safe night. I hope you have a fabulous 4th coming up, especially if you're going to be celebrating tomorrow. Please be safe. And as always, remember to bless someone. Go out and bless someone, because I know you're going to be blessed in return. And I love each and every one of you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.